Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the virtual trustee forum for March. I'm not Vince, obviously. Vince is on a ski hill out in Colorado, and so I'm hosting this tonight for us. We've got a pretty good agenda on tap on everything. We've got myself, Dr. Bill Patrick, Dr. Mike Myhofer, Karen Burgess, Dr. Todd Christie, and Dr. Chris Gorecki that are all going to give you a little synopsis of some of the topics that we're going to be covering in our upcoming meeting on there with it. To start out, you should have the agenda already in place on here. So to start out, I'm going to talk about the dental support organizations. We're going to have a generative discussion at this meeting. On the Thursday night before the meeting, we've got Andrew Smith, who's the executive director of the Association of Dental Support Organizations. He's going to give us a talk for roughly about an hour. It looks like that we've got scheduled for that. And then he'll go over, and then at our board meeting, we're going to have a generative discussion where we'll cover some of the stuff that he's talked about, but then also there were three articles that were in the MDA journal. Dr. Smiley had an editorial. Then there was a group practice out east that how they chose to partner with the management with the DSO and how they found that useful. And then Dr. Lizio also had a nice article in 2021. We'll review those articles. Then there's also there was a nice about an hour-long video that was the combination of the ADSO and the ADA. The leaders, both executive directors and the presidents, they kind of a question and answer thing. It was hosted by a dentist by the name of Steve Shepard was the moderator. Did a real nice job. It covered a lot of topics, and it really showed how we need each other. It's important to work together. We just can't, that's part of our inclusivity and including the different practice models. And it's very important. It's a dramatically growing subset of our membership, and we need to embrace them. I found it it was worth the time to review it. Probably my biggest takeaway I liked was one of the things was better providers providing better care because they're getting better support than they ever have. And they were kind of talking about how the ADA is supporting the practice of dentistry, the ADSO is supporting the business and the back office support and things like that, and how that works synergistically together, how we can do so much more as a group as opposed to each individually. And it's not an adversarial relationship. It's just it will combine our forces, and it's encouraging. Dr. Comia, he obviously always very dynamic with his speaking, but I think Dr. Sabates was probably the ramrod for instituting this and getting this together. And you can see how there's quite a bit of respect between both groups and with the leadership, and so it's encouraging. So that's a good thing. But that was the video that we had. So that's kind of where our general discussion for this meeting is going to be. So the next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Bill Patrick, who's going to talk about our endorsement on Bridge Commercial Realty. Dr. Patrick.
Good evening, everybody. Bridge Commercial Realty approached the Michigan Dental Association with having a dental realtor effectively to it's going to open up a whole new world to dentistry as for opening a new office. They'll design the office, they can find the property, they'll do construction of the office, they'll do the whole package. And you'd be able to pick and choose which parts you want and which parts you don't want. And I think it's something that has the potential of having some very nice income presented to the MDA for having this. If someone has this issue of wanting to move an office or something, or building a new office, that falls right into their right into their space, and they would be able to do a very good job with that. So we're going to attempt the IFG. Thought they had a very good presentation and thought they would be able to do a very good job for the MDA. So it's our job at the IFG to then present this to the MDA board and see if the MDA board will support us in that. Anybody has any questions, feel free. You can put them in, or I'm going to turn this over to Mike Myhofer. Mike?
Great. Well, thank you very much. So one of the agenda items for next Friday's board meeting is component compliance with MDA bylaws in relation to peer review dental care and ethics committees. I'm going to try and explain this as best as I can so everyone can understand. So for a number of years, the MDA's Committee on Peer Review Ethics has conducted an annual peer review ethics component workshop for all component ethics committees chairs and other component ethics committee members. And it was always well attended by quite a few chairs, and our post-workshop surveys always demonstrated that the attendees found that it provided value and helped them better understand their roles in adjudicating many ethics cases at both the component level and understanding a little bit better what we do at the state level. Anyway, in recent years, I think it's been about the last 3 years in a row, this annual component workshop has had to be canceled. This seems to be because of a lack of interest. We just couldn't get enough component ethics committee members to sign up. On further investigation, however, it has begun to appear that many components are no longer appointing members to both peer review dental and peer review ethics committees. This failure of a component to appoint these committees is a violation of our MDA bylaws, which read as follows. Letter E, quote, "It shall provide a peer review committee on dental care and a peer review committee on ethics within the component's boundaries, and such committees shall follow the procedures stated in the association's peer review manual and peer review ethics manual," unquote. So as you can see, a failure to comply with the bylaws poses a serious risk to any component. So consequently, the ethics committee requested that the executive committee discuss this issue from an ethical standpoint and forward the committee's recommendation for the creation of a work group to the board for its review and approval. The EC has stated that they agree with the creation of a work group and believes that components need to function as stated in the bylaws. If they are not able to comply, they may need to consider merging with another component. So what we have before the board next Friday is a resolution that reads something like this. A resolution to create a work group to explore the options to assist components with complying with the MDA bylaws, specifically as it pertains to component peer review dental and peer review ethics committees. So that's what the board is going to consider. They can consider that resolution as to whether a workshop should be created to get a better handle on this and find out, what's going on and why certain components are not assigning these committees. Does anybody have any questions on that or not? Seeing any, Eric, I'll throw it back to you.
Oh, Mike, there was just one in the chat. Clayton Shunk was asking, what's the minimum number of members for a committee?
The minimum number?
Yes.
I believe it's three. I believe it's three.
That was the last.
And if I can just say something too, one of the problems too that we've discovered is, and this is true in the past too, is that a lot of components keep reassigning the same people in their components to chair or be members of these committees, and sometimes not even informing them. And some of them are just fatigued and don't even respond to inquiries from the state. So that's a problem too. And I think that the committee will help to address that. So.
Good. Thanks, Mike. Next, we have Karen Burgess talking about the technology action plan.
Thank you, Eric. I'm going to share my screen. And only one slide, so it should not be very arduous for you guys. Hopefully everyone can see it. If somebody could nod for me that it's doing what it's supposed to, thank you. So this has been about a year-long project to assess technology. I think you're all aware that the pandemic has really accelerated the expansion of technology within society in general and within associations as well. So we conducted a benchmarking study against ASAE, the American Society for Association Executives, that focused in 4 areas. It focused in data, infrastructure, management and strategy, and digital presence. And I will share that we did, our benchmarks were really fairly good, especially in several areas, the infrastructure area. Some of the areas where there was an opportunity for improvement were pretty straightforward and shouldn't take a long time. And then there are some areas where there's been a lot of rapid progression in the availability of technology, particularly in the area of digital presence. So this plan that is going to the board at the March meeting was reviewed by all the senior staff at the MDA, as well as by the executive committee, so that we were sure to have all the questions answered. And what you see before you on this slide are the recommendations for action that came out of the technology assessment. Now, there is no financial impact to this technology action plan at this point in time, only because some of the things that we do will do within the current MDA structure. For example, developing an internal policy manual clearly doesn't cost any money. But some of the other stuff may have a financial implication down the road, but until we've explored the ideas and even issued some requests for proposals, it's hard to know exactly what the financial implication will be. So the report to the board specifies that after appropriate due diligence is done, then any financial request will come either through the normal budget process or through the normal allocation of funds by the EC or by the Board of Trustees. So I'll talk just a little bit about what the recommendations are. First recommendation, when we looked at our data integrity and cybersecurity, the MDA does an excellent job of doing annual training for every staff member. We have routine conversations and resources related to both how we maintain our data and how we make sure that we keep our data secure. But we recognize that we have quite a few dental societies at the local level who are using Aptify, our shared database, and they have their own financial systems and other data that they maintain. So our first recommendation was to routinely provide resources to local dental societies about data integrity and cybersecurity. And we expect to do that, for example, through the component relations Zoom meeting that we do every month. We also recognize that we have a lot of information about how things are done, but we also have a lot of vendors that help us. For example, cybersecurity insurance provides us with some resources. We have policies related to how we manage our finances and how we manage payments. We also have information about how we maintain MDA member data. So for example, we have a lot of pieces of the papers in various departments, but it's not consolidated into a single policy manual. So we intend to use current information, plus then fill in any missing information in the next quarter and the quarter 3 of 2023 to develop an internal policy manual. And then we'll just need to keep that up to date. So you can see those are very low cost and basically housekeeping kinds of items. In addition, we recognized that we're we do an excellent job of taking advantage of new technology opportunities, but we don't have a regular routine of meeting at regular intervals to look at technology. So implementing an annual technology checkup on a once-a-year basis and holding a planning meeting was something that everybody agreed would be a good idea. And our intention is to do that on an annual basis prior to the development of the following year's budget, so that that information, if we do need to do something, can be integrated into the budget process. So those are kind of the housekeeping cleanup kind of things that were just little gaps that we needed to fill. Then when we started looking at what the opportunities are to take advantage of new technology, we recognize that when it comes to the data that the Michigan Dental Association has, we have a lot of data silos. Not everything can be maintained in Aptify, and when we transition to Salesforce, not everything can be maintained in Salesforce. We have some proprietary databases, for example, in IFG. SharpSpring does a great job right now of helping us manage our electronic data, but for things like attendance at meetings and other kinds of activities that we might want to track, it can't be populated there. So we evaluated all the different opportunities to bring data together in order to get a 360 view of our member. And the right answer for us is a data warehouse. So a data warehouse approach for member engagement, we're actually going to pilot this this year using early career dentists with a somewhat more advanced and robust version of SharpSpring. That pilot will inform our thinking about what the data warehouse approach should be in the long term. So we'll do the pilot this year, and then we'll investigate a more robust approach to it next year. Moving on, I see Chris Grecky, has there been some discussion about the integration of the websites when Salesforce takes over? So everything that is currently done at the component level for component templates will transition seamlessly when we do the Salesforce turnover in July of 2024. So the expectation when we move from Aptify, which is the current member database, to Salesforce in July of 2024 is that the priority is that full functionality for everything we already have will continue. So hopefully it should be pretty smooth, Chris. Then when we start to look at our digital footprint, we did some research last year with early career dentists to see what their expectations were for associations. And interestingly, I was on an ASAE webinar today with Sarah Sladek, which many people are familiar with her. She has written a number of books related to young professionals. And her presentation at the webinar I saw today matched very much what we had learned from BICSA, who did our own research. So right now, the EC had agreed to approve $4,000 so that we could hire BICSA to review and make recommendations regarding our MDA website, which that's going on in this quarter. Then in our next quarter and through the beginning of 2024, we plan to undertake a website refresh to make it so that our website is more carefully curated, easier to navigate, and may even include some new features such as a chat bot, pop-up polling, etc. So you can see we've got a long window there, Q2 of this year through Q1 of 2024. Part of that is because until we know how much that website refresh is likely to cost, we really can't anticipate when we will really be able to undertake it. So if it's fairly inexpensive, we might be able to get this done this year. If it's a more expensive undertaking, we might want to start this year and extend it into next year. One part of our website, I think you guys all know that the growth of online CE has been huge, just huge. There's an expectation that there is live virtual continuing education and also on demand. And we're using a workaround to do those things right now for the Michigan Dental Association. So this year, our goal is to look at what the implications would be for a integration of a learning management system. Depending on what we find, we may look to move ahead sooner, or it may be that we want to continue to do this throughout 2024, particularly if the ADA is considering making a learning management system available to the constituent societies. Right now, they haven't made a commitment to it, but they've made a commitment to look at it. We did look at our MDA app, and until such time that we can integrate our app with the membership database, really the strategic thing to do is to maintain it, routinely refresh the content, but it would not be appropriate to make any big investment in revising it until the app is able to do what members want it to do. Right now, it's a great source of information, but you can't register for CE, you can't pay your dues, you can't buy a product, and that's all because there's no integration with the membership database. And finally, we're seeing the writing on the wall when it comes to communicating with members. It is just really, really clear that young dentists are moving away from email, and they want short communications, and they want it to come through their cell phone via texting. So our expectation is that this year we're going to evaluate the different vendors related to text messaging and look to integrate it into our communications potentially next year. I think you can appreciate that there would be a lot of data scrubbing to make sure that we actually had cell phone numbers for the members, and we would also need a very rigorous process to allow members to opt in and opt out, because while some people really, really want text messaging, some people just are not going to want to hear from us that way. So we need to put the member in the middle. So the board is going to look at all this. The expectation and the hope is that the board will say, yes, go forward, look into all these things, and bring back, do what's already planned and bring back anything that's going to cost the money. They'll answer questions. They may have additional suggestions. So that's the goal for the board meeting. Thank you. Sorry to talk so long, Eric.
Great. No, that was great. A lot of information. It seems like a lot of it, we still are so dependent on what the ADA is going to do. And matter of fact, on that video that I was speaking about earlier, Ray Comey was, oh, wait, we got the app coming. And so I'm like, okay, we're waiting. It's there, but it's not, as far as the communication side, there's not that many people that are on there that are using it for the direct communication. I thought I saw a question. Let's see here. Oh, Clayton has another question for Mike. Go ahead, Clayton. Why don't we just right in the middle here?
Thanks, Eric. I'm sorry I didn't get all those in before we moved on. But so the question is, you want 3 members on a committee. Would you want the ethics committee to be different from the peer review committee, or can you have people for the same people on the same different committees?
Okay, well, don't hold me this. It'd be better if Ginger or one of the staff people were here, but you know that you can actually have people on both committees. We prefer that you don't, but a lot of smaller components have assigned, for example, there's a lot of smaller components. We know that the chair of peer review ethics is also the chair of peer review dental care, and many of the members overlap. Ideally, you'd want to have 2 separate ones. But for the most part, there's no conflict of interest if they're the same. So I hope that answers your question. We encourage components to have 2 separate committees of 3 individuals, at least 3 individuals, and that has to do with voting at the component level. But we understand the limitations of some of the smaller components that they've had to overlap the members of each.
Right. I bring that up because our component, I think, has like 15 or 16 members. And I think Copper Country up in the UP also has around that same number of people. So if you had 6 different people on that committee and you rotate them through on an annual basis, you're going to get the same people right back on there. Or if you can't, it's hard to get 3 or 6 people to commit to anything out of 15.
I know, and that's even at the large components too. And we understand that. So, but that's a great question, and I hope I answered that okay.
Thank you, Mike.
Good. Any other questions right now that anybody has? I don't see anything on the chat. Let's see. Next, we have Dr. Todd Christie with the MBA Mission, Values, and Vision Report. Review, I'm sorry, not report. Thanks,
Thank
Todd.
you, Eric. So yes, so at actually one of our meetings back in September, it was brought up to have a discussion regarding the mission, vision statement and the guiding principles that we have. And so at our December 2022 meeting, the board approved engaging with association options to go through and assist us in reviewing and giving potential updates on these three areas between the existing mission statement, vision statement, and then the guiding principles or values as well. And so within that, association options put together a survey. They got input from members of the board, the House of Delegates, the MDA committees, and a random selection of general member dentists as well, and with a good response to the survey overall. Not that it was a good response to, though I got another survey, but a strong response that people replied back and gave their opinion. There's two different ways to look at that. But so on February 13th, so just a week or so ago, the board convened a special meeting to discuss the survey findings and provide feedback into more potential revisions that we have. And it was a thorough discussion. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend. I was out of the country, but from all I heard, they had a really vibrant discussion and worked on this a lot. So terrific. Following that as well, to clarify what the board members' positions on key aspects of it were, there was another survey that came out to discuss that. And so with responses from the board as well. And so we had the final draft that's going to be coming to the board that looks at the mission, the vision, and the values for the association. And so I'll have our resolutions to discuss that at the meeting coming up here on next week.
Thanks, Todd. I see a question in the chat from Clayton. This is, what are the two most important metrics used to? And I don't see the rest of the statement. Clayton, maybe could you clarify that, please?
Yeah, I got a question that's going to come up, but not for Todd. And I hit the enter by mistake, so sorry about
okay.
that.
Oh, no, that's
Clayton's pretty
okay.
excited to ask a question. I wonder who's next.
Okay, well, thanks, Todd. That looks good. Next,
Thanks.
we have Dr. Chris Gurecki on the MBA Public Education Campaign Report to 2023 House of Delegates. And I think he's going to share his screen for us too.
I will. I appreciate everybody coming and listening for a couple minutes. Let me go to my slideshow here. There we go. Oh, and I missed the first one, but that's perfectly all right. So this is a good report that, because a lot of people say, well, what does the House of Delegates really end up doing? Do we ever end up doing anything? And I think this is a good example of some of the things that get done at the House of Delegates level, because there was a resolution that there's a report that to review what the public education campaign is all about. And it's been going on for over 30 years. So it's always good to review policy and kind of find out what's going on, because sometimes some things end up getting buried. So the Committee on Public Relations, Dr. Sheridan Kelly with Rich Evans, who's the Director of Marketing and Communications, ended up doing the report. And it's quite lengthy and goes into a lot of detail, because there is a lot of things that are happening with the public education campaign. Originally, when it started, it was basically to get a lot of pretty much do the Find a Dentist campaign. And then it kind of started to shift over to some more of the education component. So back in October of 2018, the board voted to broaden the campaign scope and to promote more of the public health mission. So this allocation changed 80% of the campaign budget towards education and remaining 20% to promoting Find a Dentist tool. So as everything transformed, and as Karen Burgess was talking about the technology action plan, the methodology ended up changing to going digital. And so there were a whole bunch of different digital campaigns that we worked with James and Matthews, the marketing firm that the MDA uses. And so you can see that there were a whole bunch of digital components with the YouTube, online video, social media. And James and Matthews goes through and they do all of their metrics in terms of figuring out what kind of content is out there and making sure that there is a connection with members and with the public. So when we change over to doing more digital, because before it was TV and billboard kind of things, and that obviously ends up changing. So now we're, because of more of that digital aspect, we can measure things better. So you've got page visits, you have hours of video consumed. So that way you can actually measure and see how effective it is, because there's sometimes a lot of pushback in regards to, hey, you know what? Does this public assessment end up doing anything? Is Find a Dentist bringing actual patients into our chairs? And sometimes that is difficult to see, like any kind of advertising. Is there actual bang for your buck and return on investment? But a lot of the metrics here in regards to the results are showing that, hey, we're doing a lot and there are improvements. There are more clicks. There are more query of events and page views, and also the different types of campaigns. As you see on the bottom there, in 2021, there was the Let's Talk, Big Stories from Little Mouths, Find a Dentist. Then in 2022, Teeth Have Feelings Too, Illness Impact. Some of these newer and 2022 campaigns start to bring in the medical dental component as well. And I think that's going to be a real important thing as the ADA kind of shifts in terms of their main focus and what the MDA is focusing on. And like Todd was saying, we're kind of revamping what our value statement is and what our mission statement is. And I think all of this is tying in very nicely of what the MDA and organized dentistry is doing for its members and for the public. So once again, a lot of pretty much a lot of numbers for Find a Dentist. I'm not going to go over all of those, but this is a nice bar graph just showing that, well, we are definitely having more people come onto the website and trying to go find a dentist. So I think we can really kind of say to some of the skeptical members that, hey, you know what? Find a Dentist and the public assessment campaign and public education campaign are worth the money that we are spending. And hopefully with the new technology and the different changes and with Salesforce coming on, we'll be able to even better assess this, be a little bit more nimble so we can try to find out what's best for, especially for the young dentist. So I did want to show you, and this is always a real nice segue. It's always nice to have Melanie Mayberry on the board. She's so eloquent when she ends up saying anything to the board, and so I did want to just go over real quickly. We're probably not going to watch the whole thing, but this was one of the campaigns that went out, and it was just in November. So hopefully people can hear it.
Yes, unfortunately, we can't hear it, Chris. I'm not hearing it anyway.
But I think when you go on the website, thanks, Karen, we can, different members can figure out what's going on, and they can use it and post it on their pages on their own websites for their offices. So the report's pretty lengthy, but I think it's always, like I said, good to review policy, and it seems like that the public education campaign is definitely moving in the right direction. So if there's any other questions about that, so we're going to, and that's what the whole report's going to be to the House of Delegates, and so then they will be able to see all of the numbers and what's been happening with the public education campaign. Wasn't sure if anybody else had any questions about that.
Yes, Chris, there's Clayton has a question in the chat. It says, what are the two most important metrics used to evaluate the campaign program?
The two most important metrics? Well, I think there's a whole bunch of them, Clayton, that you could probably look at, and it's probably going to be a little bit different for everybody. I'm kind of thinking that it's kind of the number of people that go to the website. I don't know if that's probably a good answer or not, but I think that would probably be the best one. And I think the nice thing now about Sharp Spring is that we're going to be able to tailor those some of those pinpoint views, because we'll know exactly who's clicking on and what they're doing and how many clicks. And so this way we'll be able to measure even better. So we know how to tailor it and make it a lot more focused to the people that are going, instead of doing these mass emails or and not really being able to focus on what the members really want. I hope that answered your question.
Thanks,
Clayton.
Chris, but I am a skeptic, and I do believe that obviously digital campaigns allow you to get a lot more information. But my question is the information you're getting, is it useful? You know, can you take that information and show that it actually is beneficial to the members? And that's where I have my disconnect, because I'm not sure the information we're getting
And I think
convinces me that it's beneficial to the members.
into this discussion.
Good. I think Karen had a good answer with this.
Well, I'm not sure it's a good answer, but I would say that Clayton, you're right that the metrics, we have more metrics today than we've ever had before. We have a better idea of how well our advertising is reaching the consumers that we want to reach, what the impact is. So for example, we know if they watch a video all the way through and then go to the website for more information, we have that good information. Our marketing firm is very nimble. So if we see, for example, that there's a particular placement that is not pulling, they can move and use different digital media to try and maximize the number of eyeballs that we want to see. So, even when we were traditional media, you might remember SMZ back in the day would always talk about how many people were watching the Oprah show when our commercial ran, right? So this is very similar, except it's not the Oprah show, it's how many people saw it online. And then the other thing is, the incredible growth in the number of people who are doing find a dentist searches. The gap is that we know, for example, let's imagine that Chris Garecki needs a dentist, and he does a search, and then he does a couple of other searches. So we know he's only one guy, we only count him once. But does he at the end pick up the phone and call, or click on a link and send an email? We don't have, that closure. Now, I did actually ask the ADA if they would be willing to explore the idea of integrating, making a appointment software in there for dentists who wanted to opt in. And they said they did look at it in the past and it was super expensive, but that they would be willing to look at it in the future. So I think that that's maybe an opportunity for us down the road. But, I can understand your skepticism about, at the end of the day, does it bring more people to the dentist's office? I think the board's decision to focus on educating the consumer more than bringing, butts in seats was probably in recognition of the fact that there's that gap between knowing how many people were looking for a dentist versus how many people actually made an appointment. So hopefully that helps at least a tiny bit.
And I'd like to dovetail to that, Karen, too, because like I said, like in 2018, we did do the 80-20 split. And so I think younger dentists are also wanting to show that, hey, you know what, these are the values that we're kind of coming up with. And we want the Dental Association to show that, you know what, there is this big integration between medicine and dental. And so we are educating the people about asthma, about diabetes, about the connection between the heart disease. I can't believe some of the stuff that I've seen this week in regards to just going out into the public and picking up, at O'Reilly's. And I said, oh my gosh, this, and even in my office today, I mean, I think she was 38 years old, type 4 perio and smoking, and so it's like, what, people didn't know this? I mean, and so maybe they don't. And so I think with this campaign, and even though there are people that are very skeptical about it, I think in the end, we do really also need to realize that it's really showing the values of the MDA, that we really care about what's happening with the public as well. And so I think that, and you know what, and I think that really hits home with younger members. So I think we really have to, and I know that, and sometimes that's a big split, because trying to get into those shoes and saying, hey, are we getting our return on investment or not? And so it is hard. And I think but it's always good to have this discussion, because I know that it's not always easy, and there are members as well that are very skeptical about, is there a good return on this? Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, a few years back when I was on the PR committee, I was very impressed with James and Matthew, because it's not just, years ago, it used to just bug me that the UP small area, they're saying, okay, you've got this much market share of TV6. This is how many ads are going to run, and run about 6 a year on there with it. Well, it was more than that, but it was not very focused on there with it. And they are very responsive. Click-through rates, page views, conversion rates. So there's a lot of things, and I'm just barely touching on it. They're much more advanced on it than what I am with the web, but that part, they even have changed different, what they're running, where they're running it, and it was pretty impressive. But I like this idea where we switched to the education side of stuff, the 80-20. That's been a nice thing, rather than just a pure advertising part of it on it. But it is, they're I think they're doing a good job with stuff as far as I can tell. And they any questions that we've had, they've always been good and very responsive to it. It's not like it's this behind the curtain type of thing going on where no one knows what's happening with that. Any other questions regarding the public education campaign? First of all, I don't see anything on here. Next, like to go to all the guests here. We've got a couple new guests, and does anybody have anything that any feedback from members in the area that they have that you want to present to us, or that we want us to take it to the full board on it? Just give everybody a chance here if anybody wants to unmute. I don't see anybody on there. Okay. Well, I thank presenters for doing a great job today, and I'd like to thank everybody for taking time out of their busy Thursday to show up and watch us. It is now, I don't even know what time it is here. It's 7:45, and so if we don't have any other further questions, wish you guys a good night and have a nice weekend. Thank you. Goodbye.